Elliot Graves, 37, CEO of Graves Enterprises, is known as a reclusive billionaire who has everything except love. Tired of gold diggers and shallow matches, he does the unthinkable, disguises himself as a homeless man to observe the world unseen. He ends up in a quiet neighborhood where he meets Alma, a humble and kind woman working at a local flower shop, caring for her ill father. Alma offers food, conversation, and kindness with no idea who he really is. As feelings grow, Elliot struggles to hide his identity. Enter Vivian, a cunning ex-fiancée who learns of his secret and tries to sabotage his new life. Will Alma still love him when the truth is revealed? Or was the test doomed from the start? Elliot Graves was the kind of man people read about in business magazines but rarely saw in real life. At 37, he was one of the youngest billionaires in the country, owning a string of successful tech companies under the Graves Enterprises name. Sharp, brilliant, and reserved, Elliot was known for his cold demeanor and calculated decisions. But beneath the tailored suits and stoic gaze was a man worn down by lies. His heart had been broken more than once, not by love, but by pretenses. Every woman he dated in the last decade seemed more interested in his money, his last name, or the lifestyle he could provide. No matter how carefully he chose them, they always revealed the same truth in the end. They loved the CEO, not the man. So one rainy evening, Elliot made a decision that would change his life forever. He stood in front of the mirror in his penthouse, removing his cufflinks and silk tie. For once, he didn't want to be powerful. He didn't want to be seen at all. "I want to be loved without the disguise," he murmured to his own reflection. "So I'll become the man no one sees." The next morning, Elliot left his company in the hands of his trusted COO with a vague explanation. He donned tattered jeans, an old flannel jacket, and scuffed boots. A gray knit beanie covered his neatly trimmed hair, and he didn't shave for days. By the end of the week, he looked like a different man, a man life had forgotten. He took up shelter near a quiet district far from the city center. The streets there were narrow, lined with old shops and family-run stalls. It was peaceful, unassuming, perfect. People walked past him without a glance. Until one woman didn't. The first few days living on the streets were harder than Elliot imagined. The cold cement felt like ice beneath his body at night, and the rumbling of hunger was an unfamiliar pain to a man who once dined on imported truffle pasta and wine aged longer than most marriages. No one recognized him. That was the point. They walked past as if he were invisible. Some even scoffed. A few teenagers laughed and threw a half-eaten burger at his feet. He remained silent, observing, learning. But then, her. She walked by every morning at 7:30, carrying a basket of marigolds, lilies, and jasmine wrapped in brown paper. A simple white blouse tucked into a long mustard skirt. She didn't wear makeup, but there was something radiant about her, a glow that came from kindness rather than cosmetics. One morning, as Elliot sat near the alley beside the flower shop, she stopped. He pretended not to notice. "Are you hungry?" she asked softly. His head snapped up. Her voice was gentle, and her eyes were not filled with pity, but concern. He blinked, hesitated, then gave a small nod. Without another word, she opened her canvas bag and pulled out a warm bao bun wrapped in wax paper. "I bought 2. Please take 1. Elliot reached out slowly. "Thank you," he said, surprised at the gravel in his own voice. She smiled, a smile that reached her eyes, and said, "I'm Alma. My dad always says, kindness is the only wealth that multiplies when shared." He watched her walk away, warmth filling a space in his chest that had been cold for too long. He didn't know her yet, but something told him that this woman was different. Elliot found himself waiting for Alma each morning, not out of need, but out of a growing sense of peace her presence brought. Each day, she would offer something: bread from her father's bakery, a small carton of milk, or simply conversation. She never asked his name, never pushed him to speak. She treated him with dignity. It shook him to his core. One afternoon, rain began to fall. Elliot huddled beneath a wooden overhang, soaked and shivering. He hadn't expected Alma to show up, but she did, umbrella in hand. "I was looking for you," she said, holding out a second umbrella and a steaming paper cup. "Chamomile. Helps with cold." He stared at her, stunned. "Why do you care?" She tilted her head thoughtfully. Why shouldn't I? He opened his mouth, then closed it. That answer disarmed him more than anything. The next day, Elliot followed her from a distance, curious. She stopped at a small building with peeling paint, Marigold Home for the Elderly. Inside, she greeted each resident by name, helping them eat, reading books aloud, fixing someone's slippers. She didn't do it for pay. She did it because it mattered. And Elliot knew, this woman was everything he wasn't used to. She didn't seek attention. She gave without measure. His heart began to betray him. Despite the disguise, despite the cold streets, Elliot found warmth every time Alma appeared. But shadows stirred elsewhere. In a sleek penthouse across town, Vivian Locke, Elliot's former fiancée, sat scrolling through her phone. She had heard whispers of his sudden disappearance, and she wasn't letting go without a fight. Elliot had never lived so simply, nor so honestly. Each morning began with the soft hum of Alma's voice greeting shopkeepers, each evening with quiet conversations on the curb, sharing food, laughter, and stories. Sometimes they talked about nothing. Sometimes they talked about life. He never told her who he really was. I used to work with computers, he said one evening, careful not to lie, but not to tell too much. She smiled. I always thought people who worked with computers had complicated minds, but lonely eyes. Elliot looked at her then, and she wasn't wrong. As the days passed, Alma invited him home. Just for dinner. My grandmother worries you're too skinny, she said with a playful smile. He hesitated, but eventually nodded. Her home was small, nestled near the edge of a wooded slope, filled with the smell of herbs and warmth. Her grandmother, a sharp-witted woman with silver hair and strong opinions, eyed him carefully. "What's your name, son?" she asked. He paused. "Eli." She raised an eyebrow. "Not used to being called that, are you?" Elliot froze, but Alma laughed, deflecting the tension. From that night, he became a part of their quiet world. Helping fix shelves, carrying wood, listening to Alma hum while she watered the plants. He didn't notice how much he smiled now. But not far away, Vivian Locke had uncovered a lead. A grainy photo posted by a tourist showed a familiar face, bearded, ragged, but unmistakable. "Found you," she whispered with venom. Vivian Locke arrived in the quiet district, wearing heels that clicked too loudly against the cobbled streets. She was out of place, her designer coat, her sculpted features, her cold eyes. But she didn't care. She had a goal. After bribing a few local shopkeepers, she found what she was looking for, the man once known as Elliot Graves, sitting beside a flower stall, handing Alma a cup of tea and laughing softly. Vivian's jaw clenched. How dare he look so happy without her? That night, Elliot walked Alma home like usual. He didn't see Vivian watching from the shadows. But the next morning, chaos struck. A sleek black car pulled up in the middle of the street. Two men stepped out, followed by Vivian. "Elliot Graves," she said loudly, "you've had your fun playing beggar. Time to come home." Gasps from bystanders. Elliot stood frozen. Alma looked between them, confused. What is she talking about? Vivian strode forward. "He's a billionaire CEO, darling. Didn't he tell you that? Or did he enjoy being your charity project?" Alma's eyes widened. She turned to Elliot. "Is it true?" He opened his mouth, panic rising. "Alma, I..." She stepped back, hurt flashing across her face. "You lied to me." Vivian smirked. "He lies easily. Don't take it personally." Without another word, Alma walked away, tears in her eyes. Her grandmother stood at the doorway, disappointment etched deep. Later that night, Elliot sat alone by the river. Vivian tried to speak, but he silenced her with one sentence. "I never loved you. I see that now." Elliot had returned to his old world, penthouse views, tailored suits, and media frenzy. Headlines celebrated the miraculous return of CEO Elliot Graves. Cameras flashed, board members cheered, Vivian smiled beside him for the press. But inside, Elliot felt like a hollow shell. He missed the quiet of Alma's village, the aroma of warm herbal tea, the way her laughter filled the evening air. Most of all, he missed being seen for who he truly was. Not his name, not his wealth, but his heart. One morning, He stood before the mirror and saw only a stranger. That same afternoon, he asked his driver to take him back, to the woods, to the flower stall, to her. Alma didn't want to see him at first. Her grandmother intercepted him. "She cried for days," she said coldly. "Do you love her? Or were we just a temporary escape from your polished world?" "I love her," Elliot said, voice shaking. "I never planned any of this. But she taught me how to feel again. How to live. I don't want a life without her." Her grandmother studied him for a long time, then stepped aside. Elliot found Alma by the stream where they used to sit. She didn't look up. "I lied to you," he began. "Not because I wanted to deceive you, but because I was afraid. Afraid you'd never love the real me, buried under money and reputation." She finally looked at him, eyes brimming. "The worst part wasn't who you were. It was that you didn't trust me enough to tell the truth." "I know," he whispered. "But I'm here now. Not as Elliot Graves, CEO. Just as Eli. The man who fell in love with you while sweeping your porch and watching sunsets." There was a long silence. Then, finally, Alma stepped forward. "And if you ever lie again," she warned. "I won't," he said quickly. She smiled. "Good." And then, her hand reached for his. 1 year later, the sun filtered gently through the trees surrounding Alma's small house, now repainted and glowing with new life. A garden bloomed where weeds once grew. Wind chimes sang softly in the breeze. In the backyard, Elliot, dressed in simple clothes, barefoot and happy, helped Alma set up chairs. Today was special. Their wedding would not be in a grand cathedral or luxury resort. It would be here, beneath the trees where they first fell in love. Surrounded by people who truly mattered. Guests from both worlds had come, Alma's neighbors, the elderly from the care home, and a few trusted friends from Elliot's past who had seen him change. Even his mother, once distant, arrived with tears in her eyes. "I've never seen you this at peace," she whispered, hugging him. Vivian, of course, did not attend. After the media exposed her attempt to force a marriage upon Elliot for the sake of status, she vanished from the public eye. She had become a footnote in a story that no longer belonged to her. As Alma walked down the aisle, barefoot, smiling, adorned in a dress made by her grandmother, Elliot felt the weight of every disguise fall away. This was the truth. This was real. When the officiant asked if he took Alma to be his wife, Elliot didn't hesitate. "I do. 1,000 times I do." Later that night, as stars blanketed the sky and laughter filled the air, Alma leaned her head on Elliot's shoulder. "You still sure you don't miss skyscrapers and meetings?" she teased. He chuckled. "Only the view," he said, looking at her. "But I've got something far more breathtaking now." She kissed his cheek, and for the first time in years, Elliot Graves, once the untouchable CEO, felt whole. And finally, truly loved.